Nuestro próximo presentador es Gould. Ross es el vicepresidente de la red de desarrollo de la cadena de suministro. Él se unió a Business Network en el 2020 y supervisa el crecimiento y la evolución de la red de la cadena de suministro de energía eólica marina, así que como el desarrollo, de la cadena de suministro de energía eólica marina, así como el desarrollo de la fuerza laboral de la industria eólica marina. Son dos cosas muy importantes que él maneja. Trabaja con empresas y otros para identificar oportunidades para proveedores de offshore winds, es decir, de energía eólica marina. Please join me in welcoming Ross Gould. Ross, welcome. Thank you for coming. We are eager to learn about your organization, about your projects, everything that you have to say. Thank you again.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you very much, Jacqueline, Martha, and the Small Business Development Center for the invitation tonight. I'm so glad to be here with you all. My name is Ross Gould, Vice President for Supply Chain Development at the Business Network for Offshore Wind. And over the next few minutes, I'll share with you some information on the opportunities for your business to be a supplier on an offshore wind project. Offshore wind is a once-in-a-generation economic opportunity to build a new industry. $12.1 billion with a B, $12.1 billion will be spent in New York on 5 offshore wind projects. U.S. offshore wind industry in total is forecasted to bring $109 billion in revenue opportunities to businesses in the supply chain over the course of the next decade. And your business may be able to participate in that. So for example, there will be an offshore wind operation and maintenance facility being built and constructed in East Setauket on Long Island. And that facility will have a number of needs, including construction services, transportation, and facilities management, to name a few. We'll give you some pointers to access these opportunities. And it would help if they advance the slide there. Unlike what you hear from Maria and Mary, whose organizations directly have procurement needs, I work in an organization whose over 400 members are the companies that you would be seeking to connect with to supply. I will focus today on sharing information about how to participate as a supplier in the offshore wind industry. Business Network for Offshore Wind is a nonprofit educational organization dedicated to building a robust wind energy industry and supply chain. It advances the industry through collaboration, education, and innovation. The network focuses on bringing businesses and people together to develop relationships that hopefully turn into business getting work in the offshore wind industry. The network has hosted over 250 events and brought together over 15,000 individuals from over 2,100 companies. This was all done with one purpose: to grow the offshore wind supply chain. Offshore wind has an enormous potential to provide electricity. It actually has enough potential to provide over 18 times more electricity than what is needed worldwide. Now, I just want to give you a quick look, and maybe you all can let me know in the chat, but how many of you had heard of offshore wind prior to jumping onto this meeting today? But what you're looking at here is an offshore wind farm. Offshore wind is the construction of wind turbines in bodies of water using foundations fixed to the seafloor, as well as deeper water areas using floating offshore wind turbines. These turbines have blades that spin in response to wind force and convert wind energy into electrical power through generators. What you're looking at in this graphic is a representation of an offshore wind farm under construction. Just drop a note in the chat to tell me what business you're in, and I'll try to refer to it as we go along this evening and let you know where you're fitting in. So with these the offshore wind industry is an extremely large industry, as I said. There are over 8,000 components needed for an offshore wind turbine. Therefore, there are a large number of opportunities for businesses to get involved in the industry. I'm showing you this slide to provide an overview of the size of an offshore wind turbine. As you can see, an offshore wind turbine is more than 2 times larger than the Statue of Liberty. An offshore wind turbine, the blade itself, runs from end zone to end zone on a football field, a full 100 yards, just for the blade themselves. Now let's turn and take a look at the opportunity being presented in the offshore wind market in the United States, and more specifically, New York. This map here shows where offshore wind projects are being developed in the United States. As you can see, there are opportunities up and down the East Coast and over on the left-hand side with areas of California, Hawaii, and the Gulf of Mexico. This is a nationwide industry that's emerging. Now here, you see a map of the ports, right? This is an offshore wind industry, so you need ports in order to get your goods and services from land out to the ocean. So these are the 21 ports that are going to be involved in providing services and performing work in the offshore wind space. There are 2 additional ports that are under consideration as well. Now, there are a host of opportunities available for businesses at ports: general and civil construction to upgrade these ports facilities, administrative and support services for the facilities, engineering, scientific, and technical consulting, just to name a few. In Europe, offshore wind industry has been around since 1991, when the first offshore wind turbines were installed. And the industry has grown to over 40,000 jobs now in the European Union. And it is predicted that in the United States, the industry will create 80,000 jobs. The supply chain wheel you're looking at here on the left, you can see in the middle of that, it says the word developer. Well, an offshore wind project developer is really in the middle of all of the project, and they're surrounded by the 4 phases of the project that they need to take it through. And for any of you that might have worked on a construction project or a power plant project, these phases of an offshore wind industry will look very familiar to you. And I point these out because this helps you to identify where your company's goods and services can fit into the offshore wind industry. Phase 1, siting and permitting. This is when a developer investigates the area in the ocean where they will be placing the offshore wind turbines, and also when they go through the required permitting process. Anyone who has done construction for a mall or a building, they understand the permitting process. The second phase is construction and installation. That is the process of assembling and installing the major components, the foundations, the towers, and the turbines in the ocean. Next phase, once they've been installed, is construction and operation. I'm sorry, once they've been installed, is operation and maintenance. During operation and maintenance, that's the time of electricity generation and all things that are required to operate and maintain the offshore wind farm are required during 25 years of operation. The outer area that you're looking at on that wheel is a list of the major services and components that are required for a project. In the industry language, they are called the tier one manufacturers or tier 1 service providers. These major components and service providers are further broken down into tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. All of the suppliers of the smaller subcomponents, assemblies, parts, and raw materials that made up those 8,000 components I mentioned earlier. Within the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, there are over 500 categories of products and services. Now, what does this all mean to you? It means to you that your company is likely to be a company that can provide goods and services within the offshore wind industry. Now, I want to take a look at what's happening in New York State a little more specifically. And here, in New York, as I mentioned earlier, there are 5 offshore wind projects. Over here with my highlighter is the Beacon Wind Project. We also have the Empire Wind and Empire Wind 2 projects. Those projects are being developed by a company named Equinor. Equinor is the developer of Empire 1 and Beacon Wind. And then these projects over here, the South Fork Wind Farm and the Sunrise Wind Farm, those are being developed by Ørsted and Eversource as a joint project. Now, more projects will be awarded later, and there are immediate needs and opportunities related to these projects. Now, you can note that there are 5 ports that are going to be servicing these. There's the Port of Albany, there's the Port of Queens, which is also up near Albany in the capital region. There's the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. Then there's also the Port Jefferson East Setauket Operation and Maintenance Facility I mentioned earlier. So these 5 ports will be servicing these projects. These ports have immediate needs for general construction, for buildings and facilities, because they need to be upgraded to handle the large components I talked about. They need environmental and engineering, facilities maintenance, facility and administrative assistance. They need suppliers for operations at the ports. They need suppliers of secondary steel, fabrication, welding, and vessels, to name a few of their immediate needs. Let's turn now how you access all of these opportunities. First, you're going to have to do your homework, familiarize yourself with the industry, and learn where in a project life cycle your product or service is required, and who is the company that within the supply chain that would be your point of contact. So if you're a manufacturer, you're typically going to want to meet with someone who manufactures these towers that are meeting here, the large components, because you can manufacture some of the subcomponents for them. Now, if you are a manufacturer, typically you assess these opportunities by becoming preferred suppliers and registering to become a preferred supplier. You do that by connecting with these companies and signing up on their website and going through a supplier process. You're going to have to go through an audit, a health, safety, and engineering compliance, and as well as an on-site assessment. Another way to assess these is to connect to government entities that are working on these projects. So the New York City Economic Development Corporation is the owner of the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. So if you're interested in working at the terminal, contact New York City Economic Development Corporation. In addition, and I'm going to put them on the spot, my friends who invited me here this evening, connect with your small business development council. They can help you as well. They can connect you to me. And of course, as you'll hear later, you can connect with me, and I'll leave you with with my contact information. An additional way to connect on these is to advertise your interest and capabilities in places where developers and component manufacturers will go to find partners. You can register here for free on our Supply Chain Connect registry. It's the premier national offshore wind registry with over 2,500 companies who have raised their hand to say, hi, I'm interested and I am capable of performing in your industry. So please, here's my contact information, reach out to me. And our Supply Chain Connect database, we are regularly contacted by project developers like Equinor and Ørsted, as well as by original equipment manufacturers like Siemens Gamesa and Vestas, and other large component manufacturers, asking us to help connect them to businesses. And we regularly provide them with contact information for businesses from our Supply Chain Connect registry. So I want to quickly move on to some recommendations for how you can get into the industry. I've given you a little bit, but first, do your homework. You need to learn the vernacular and the terms used in the industry, and you need to learn where you fit into the industry and who to be your who is and where is your point of entry. For example, if you're someone that is a facilities maintenance company, you don't need to be contacting someone who, a law firm. You don't need to be contacting the project's developer in order to ask them to maintain their facility, because they're not building facilities and maintaining the facilities. You need to contact the original equipment manufacturer who's building the facility, or the port operator who's operating the port out of which they'll be doing the work. You want to also connect with businesses in the industry. You want to partner with experienced businesses to learn from them. To explore our Supply Chain Connect registry, and I'll put that link in the chat after I'm done. But you want to connect with businesses in the industry who've already been doing work and partner with them to get yourselves into the industry. Also, you want to become registered minority women business enterprise through the New York City Economic Development Corporation. They will be doing solicitations for businesses to provide services to the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. So sign up with New York City Economic Development Corporation. Finally, you can reach out, please, as Mary said, it would be very happy to follow up with you and speak with you afterwards. So if you're interested in becoming more involved in the industry and you're looking for a place to connect, please reach out to me. Here's my contact information, and I'm happy to follow up with you. And I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ross. Excellent. Oh my goodness. How informative. So good. Very fantastic information. Thank you so much. And we are looking forward working with you a lot. Okay, Business Network Offshore Wind es una organización educativa sin fines de lucro dedicada a construir una sólida industria y cadena de suministro de energía eólica marina, y la organización hace avanzar la industria a través de colaboración, educación y de innovación. La red ha desarrollado una serie de herramientas para ayudar a las empresas a aprender sobre la industria eólica marina y cómo convertirse en un proveedor. Las herramientas que ellos están ofreciendo son un foro de asociación internacional y pequeños eventos. La red ha reunido a más de 15,000 personas de más de 2,100 empresas con el único propósito de promover la energía eólica marina. El registro de proveedores de Offshore Wind Supply Chain Connect es gratuito y permite a las empresas indicar públicamente su interés y capacidad para suministrar componentes y servicios a proyectos eólicos marinos de Estados Unidos. Los desarrolladores de proyectos eólicos marinos y los fabricantes de equipos originales y otros proveedores de primer nivel están utilizando esa base de datos para encontrar los proveedores. Otra herramienta que ofrece es la Fundación Turbine, que es un programa de capacitación integral diseñado para ayudar a las empresas locales a identificar dónde encajan en la cadena de suministro y ayudarles a tomar decisiones relacionadas con la reorganización, la inversión, la asociación y el manejo del tiempo. Por último, el boletín informativo, esa es otra de las herramientas que ellos están ofreciendo. El boletín informativo Offshore Wind Insider, que se publica semanalmente todos los miércoles e incluye una sesión exclusiva para miembros con políticas, eventos y actualizaciones de la industria. Aquí hay algunos datos muy importantes relacionados con las oportunidades en la industria eólica marina o costera. Ellos se gastarán 12.100 millones de dólares en Nueva York en 5 proyectos eólicos marinos. Se pronostica que la industria eólica marina de Estados Unidos generará 109 billones de dólares en oportunidades de ingresos para las empresas de la cadena de suministro en el transcurso de una década. La energía eólica marina es la construcción de... Presten atención que esto es súper interesante. Esta es o sea, entender un poco más acerca de esta oportunidad que es súper valiosa en este momento para Long Island y para todas las personas del estado de Nueva York y los que deseen ver la oportunidad acá. La energía eólica marina es la construcción de turbinas eólicas en cuerpos de agua que utilizan tecnologías tradicionales de turbinas eólicas de fondo fijo, así como en áreas de aguas más profundas que utilizan turbinas eólicas flotantes. Esas turbinas tienen aspas que giran en respuesta a la fuerza del viento y convierten la energía eólica en energía eléctrica a través de generadores. Esta es la industria grande y compleja que abarca más de 500 categorías en diferentes productos, materiales y servicios, incluyendo, todas estas son las oportunidades que ustedes deben de revisar. ¿Dónde están las oportunidades? ¿Qué son los servicios que ellos utilizan? Los servicios son, por ejemplo, servicios legales, servicios de contabilidad, de construcción, fabricación de acero, operación de embarcaciones, transporte, electrónica, computadoras, motores, trenes de transmisión, compuestos y muchísimo más. Se necesitan más de 8,000 componentes para una turbina eólica marina, por lo que existe una gran cantidad de oportunidades para que las empresas se involucren en la industria. En Nueva York hay 5 proyectos eólicos marinos en desarrollo, que es el Beacon Wind, Empire Wind 1 y 2, South Fork Wind, Sunrise Wind y 5 puertos que atenderán esos proyectos. Más proyectos serán adjudicados a finales de este año. Hay oportunidades inmediatas relacionadas con la construcción civil general para edificios e instalaciones portuarias, medio ambiente, ingeniería, mantenimiento de instalaciones, proveedores para las operaciones en puertos, proveedores de fabricación secundaria de acero, soldadura y embarcaciones, por mencionar algunos. En cuanto a la pregunta que le hice de cómo tener acceso a esas oportunidades, Ross nos comentó que dado que la industria es tan grande y compleja, hay varias formas de acceder a las oportunidades, las cuales dependen del tipo de bienes y servicios que ustedes suministren. Tendrán que hacer algunos deberes para familiarizarse con la industria y aprender en qué momento del ciclo de la vida del proyecto se requiere su proyecto o servicio y quién dentro de la cadena de suministro sería su punto de contacto. Por ejemplo, un fabricante normalmente accede a esas oportunidades convirtiéndose en el proveedor preferido de uno de los fabricantes de componentes grandes. También puede acceder a estas oportunidades conectándose con desarrolladores de proyectos o grandes proveedores de equipos o servicios. Además, también pueden conectarse con operadores portuarios, contratistas generales u otros contratistas de construcción e instalaciones que trabajan en proyectos eólicos marinos. Otra forma de acceder es a través de alianzas y colaboraciones. Deben encontrar empresas que ya están trabajando en la industria y buscar la forma de trabajar con ellas. Tendrán acceso a oportunidades basadas en experiencias pasadas y a trabajar con ellas, obtendrán experiencia y conocimiento y aprenderán a acceder mejor a esas oportunidades. Para conocer acerca de las oportunidades de negocio disponibles, es posible que deban precalificarse como proveedor preferido antes de obtener acceso a los detalles de las oportunidades disponibles. Sin embargo, antes de dar ese paso, pueden aprovechar esas oportunidades aprendiendo sobre la industria y conectándose con empresas que trabajan en proyectos que aprendan más sobre la industria y las oportunidades potenciales. Ross compartió algunas fuentes y páginas web como sitios web del proyecto, registros de proveedores de desarrolladores de proyectos y cómo conectarse con el network de Offshore Wind. Dice Ross que el conectarse a Supply Chain Connect puede ser un punto de partida para conocer las oportunidades comerciales disponibles, ya que los desarrolladores de proyectos y los fabricantes de componentes grandes se comunican con ellos para solicitar proveedores. O sea, en definitiva, las recomendaciones que nos deja Ross son las siguientes. Presten atención, pues. Hay que hacer la tarea, adquirir conocimiento sobre la industria, los proyectos, las empresas de la industria y de la industria local. Aprender dónde encajan sus productos y servicios, quién es el negocio adecuado para conectarse. Asistir a eventos y conectarse con personas y empresas que ya trabajan en la industria. Buscar cumplir con las calificaciones necesarias para convertirse en un proveedor acreditado. Registrarse en Supply Chain Connect, que es un registro gratuito de empresas interesadas y capaces de prestar servicios y o suministrar proyectos manufacturados para la industria. Excelente presentación, ¿cierto? Excelente. Thank you, Ross. Recuerden escribir las preguntas en el chat. Si ustedes tienen alguna pregunta, él las puede responder allí. Bueno,